The one thing I think I will say is something that, well, I've served mostly in Latin America. I lived in Spain before I joined the Foreign Service, and so I spoke fluent Spanish, and I went to Venezuela, then to Guatemala, then Peru desk, then to Bilbao, Spain, where I was consul, then back to Washington, where I served in Cuban affairs, and then I was the Deputy Chief of Mission in Managua, Nicaragua, and then Deputy Chief of Mission in Peru, in Lima, Peru, and then Deputy Chief of Mission in Madrid. Then my moment came, and I was ambassador to Moldova and Eastern Europe, and back to Washington in Human Resources, and then finally on to be ambassador in Ecuador. But I am, perhaps if you were to Google me, I am most well known for having been ambassador in Ecuador because I was kicked out. This is because of Wikileaks. Ecuador is the only country, and I'm sure you are familiar with Wikileaks. These were the Department of State documents, cables that were stolen by a corporal, an army corporal, and then passed on to Julian Assange of Wikileaks. And then over time, between November and ongoing, even now, the publication of our confidential or secret communication with the Department of State. It was a very difficult experience having these cables come out little by little, but when it comes to Ecuador, they finally began to come out in about March or April of last year. And there was one that there were several that were going to be very displeasing to the government of Ecuador, but one that was published that said that we were asking to revoke the visa of a former commander of the Ecuadorian police. And the cable said, he was well known to be corrupt. Nobody would have argued with that. But the cable said some embassy officials believe that President Correa knew that he was corrupt and named him on purpose in order to be able to manipulate him. It only said some embassy officials, but that was enough for the government of Ecuador. They declared me persona non grata, that's being PNG, and I was gone in a week. I'm also, for your information, the first female U.S. ambassador ever to have been declared persona non grata by any government. Right? And I may well be the first female ambassador in the world to have been declared persona non grata by any government, but I can't prove that without getting that information from every government in the world. In any case, it was an experience. We also, by the way, in reciprocity, we kicked out their ambassador, and our relations are still very rocky. But it gave me a great deal of time to, since then, to think about how lucky we are that we have leaders who tolerate criticism, who do not go to extremes like that. And I've also been very proud over the years as ambassador or as a Foreign Service officer to know that we Americans are so generous with our time. We volunteer. I know there are many people in this room who volunteer for their community, who support your community. And these are the things that I've talked about as much as I can in those 31 years of my diplomatic service. So I'm really very eager to get to know you and to learn more about this community here in Cleveland. Thank you very much.